Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Robert Tremblay, and I'm the co-chair of the Calgary Climate Hub. As an organization, we are also a member of the Calgary Alliance for the Common Good. Today, we've already heard from a myriad of organizations and citizens asking you for one thing: approve the housing strategy completely. We've also seen survey results, a more representative data point than this public hearing, that show a vast majority of Calgarians support the full implementation of the housing strategy. I'd like to add more volume to that chorus and express Calgary Climate Hub's overwhelming support for the recommendations of the Housing and Affordability Task Force, especially the call for base RCG zoning and the removal of parking minimums. Calgary Climate Hub's vision is to make Calgary a leader in addressing the most critical crisis of our time: greenhouse gas-induced climate change. We took a step towards that with the passing of Calgary's climate strategy, but implementation requires a steadfast commitment to what was in the strategy. Today, we have an opportunity to implement a portion of the climate strategy if you are bold and brave, as Calgarians want you to be. Calgary's low density and resulting car dependency is a key driver of Calgary's carbon footprint. Indeed, 34% of Calgary's total emissions come from gasoline and diesel burned in vehicles. There are over 1 million internal combustion engine vehicles registered in Calgary today. To reach net zero, all of these will either need to be replaced with zero-emission vehicles or shifted over to other modes of transport. Vehicle electrification will be a necessary but incredible challenge in its own right. We need to build a city that allows for modes aside from private vehicles, or we will struggle to meet the goals Calgary committed to in its climate strategy. Expanding both choice and quantity of housing, especially in the existing city, where walking, cycling, and transit are the most viable, is a critical and proven strategy to decrease car use and ease our transition to a city with 100% zero carbon transportation. I'll just put some of what's in the climate strategy here just to demonstrate that okay, sounds good. Not as smooth as I was hoping for. But to demonstrate that what's proposed in the housing strategy is also in concert with what was proposed in the climate strategy. So we can see that H4.1, H4.2, and H4.3 all support what is proposed in the housing strategy. Reading out H4.2, through the land use bylaw update, enable increased housing types and support uses for residential areas to facilitate complete communities and reduce dependency on private vehicles. H4.3, consider viable options for removing and or reducing motor vehicle parking minimums in residential areas to allow for more compact development, more efficient use of land, and encourage alternate modes of transportation. To build a low-carbon city, we need to level the playing field on regulatory burden between development on the outskirts and inside the city. Right now, there is far too much red tape placed on development inside the city, and much of this stems from the micromanagement of development through a variety of low-density zones and varying parking minimums. Simplifying Calgary zoning to allow for multi-family houses and eliminate parking minimums in the points below are especially critical to realizing the vision in Calgary's climate strategy. We thus strongly support the implementation of base RCG zoning and are disappointed to see the Housing and Affordability Task Force recommendations on the removal of parking minimums already watered down. Edmonton already removed parking minimums over 3 years ago. I don't understand why we need to be special and slow roll this in Calgary. I urge you to think of the broad cross-section of stakeholders that have called for these things. Again, supporting base RCG zoning and removal of parking minimums that you see before you today. Democracy does not mean listening to the vocal few. It means listening to everyone. Finally, on a personal note, just adding kind of some of my own context, I recently received notice that my rent was to go up 33%. Fortunately, I was able to negotiate it down to 22%, but I think this is still indicative of the crisis we're in. I want to live an affordable, low-carbon lifestyle that is available in Calgary's existing city. I don't want to have my housing choice limited to a small minority of housing stock around the edge of the city. We need housing built in the existing city so the folks who want to choose to live a lower carbon lifestyle can do so and do so affordably. So in conclusion, I urge you to pass the housing strategy, including with base RCG and the removal of parking minimums. The vast majority of Calgarians want and support you to do so please listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Greg.